let's dive into somebody's pre-approved and ready to look for a home. What happens, Mo?
Typically what I like to do, especially working with a buyer, is I like to set up a meeting. The home buying process, it often can present different challenges and be a stressful situation at times. It's a chance for myself to get together with the client and hopefully make sure that it's a good fit. It's really a relationship forming at that point, and you want to make sure that you both are on the same page. I like putting a plan in place typically just so we can ensure a smooth transaction and it's enjoyable for them at the end of the experience. So for me, it's typically about an hour. The consultation typically takes about an hour. It's an opportunity for them to ask me questions, for them to ask me questions, and me ask them questions, hearing what their ultimate goals are, their lifestyle, where they want to live, the location, the specs of the home. Hopefully at that point they've already spoke to a lender, but if they haven't, kind of sharing with them the importance of that is getting pre-qualified, understanding where your payments are, what their closing costs are going to be, so they're prepared for those things. And the buyer's expectations, how are we going to communicate? Email, phone, text, what's their availability? So especially in this market right now, things are moving hot. Things don't sit, if they're priced really well, then they typically move pretty quick. So understanding the availability so we could make appointments on the fly, and sometimes. It helps me set the expectations too, and sharing the process on what they could expect, the current market conditions. I love to go over the contract, not in detail, but kind of point out key points of the contract to hopefully eliminate any questions when we get to that point. I think that it creates an ease in their mind, and they understand, okay, I've seen it, I understand it. Obviously, questions will pop up later, which I'm glad to answer as well. But when they have a general idea what they're looking at and the timelines that'll be in place, I think it kind of makes the whole experience a little more enjoyable too as we move forward. I'll go over contracts, addendums, and it kind of leads me back. This was years ago. It was actually the very first one that I did. It was a gentleman named Tim, and I remember he was moving from Georgia. He was renting. He was in the military. He was extremely nervous. So we sat down. We met at a Starbucks, just went over the general details of everything. And it was much later. Like, we looked at probably 4 or 5 homes. He nailed one down. We got her into contract. We get to closing, and it was at the closing table where we were, hey, how was your experience? We started opening up a conversation, and it was the time when he said, hey, Mo, you made my experience completely enjoyable, and it all started with the piece that you gave me when you did the buyer's consultation. And it kind of nailed home to me how important it was, because this is really where you're laying the groundwork of moving forward and setting expectations and kind of creating that relationship. And you want to create a referral-based business. So you want to do a good job and give those people a peace of mind that you're there for them. And so that's kind of where I'm at with everything on that.
Yeah, so once we start after the buyer consultation, we'll start talking about their search criteria. So we'll talk through their must-haves, how many bedrooms do they need, how many bathrooms do they need, a minimum to maximum square footage. Also their price range that they want to zero in, which again, that's why it's very important for them to start with a pre-approval so they understand what their monthly payments will be, understand what kind of closing costs. So now we're able to establish a price range. And then also to figure out an area, figuring out an area, where do they work? Where do they want their kids to go to school? Do they want to be closer to the beaches or downtown? They want to be close to shopping and just good schools. So figuring out that area. And then also finding out some of the nice-to-haves. They would like to have a pool, a fence, fireplace, other specifics that they're looking for in a home. And I typically like to sit down with them and do a map search together. That's usually very helpful because it shows how everything narrows down. So when I sit down with a customer and I pull up the MLS and we have a map and it shows there's actually thousands of real estate listings, and I'll start it there. And then I'll say, okay, what area do you want to be in? We'll find that. We'll put it up. And then they'll see how the map starts to get lower. There's less homes on there. How many bedrooms and baths? We'll add that. There's less homes. The price range, there's less homes. And then when we narrow it down, it narrows down to what's left. And if there's a good amount, then that's great. If it narrows down super much with all their criteria and the price and everything, and there's not much available, sometimes that kind of opens up the eyes that like, oh, okay, maybe we need to broaden our search a little bit. Maybe I don't need to have the pool. Or maybe I do want the pool, but maybe I can give up if it has a fireplace. Or maybe I can take a little smaller place or something like that. So when we do that together and they kind of see how things narrow down, that's really an eye-opener about, what where they want to focus their search and whether they want to make it broader. Some of the resources, and I'll just go ahead and spout them out here on the show. Some of the resources that I'll point them to is greatschools.org, also niche.com, niche.com. And then also the city of Jacksonville, they have a crime rate map where you could put in an address and you could search and it'll tell you about the crime rate statistics in the area. So those are a couple websites I'll point people to as well, so that if maybe they're newer and they want to do some research on the areas. So many times the buyer's search criteria gets adjusted as the process goes on. So like I said, if we start that search, we're looking for the most ideal possible property. And if we're just not finding that, if it's not coming up, then maybe we'll broaden the search. And then sometimes, like what we'll do is we'll do an initial search, and then I'll also do an e-alert search. And what that is we'll set up a campaign that when new listings pop up that meet their search criteria, we'll set it up where it'll automatically email to them when those listings come up. The good thing about that is that even if a property pops up that I'm not even aware of, it's going to automatically send them this property that fits their criteria. So it helps for things not to fall through the cracks. Now with that, I typically will do two different e-alert searches. I'll have one that's completely narrow that just has everything exactly as what they're looking for, so that when those properties pop up, it'll shoot out to them. But then I'll also usually do a separate broader search where I loosen up some of the restrictions on that search a little bit. And the reason I do that is that because sometimes actually agents don't fill out the listings properly. Sometimes they won't check off that there's a fireplace, or sometimes they won't, instead of in-ground pool, they'll accidentally select above ground pool. Stuff like that has happened. So I like to do broader searches too, because sometimes we'll see that some of the homes slip through those cracks, and it'll show up in that search. And then also we'll point people to our website where they can search and browse the MLS on their own, and that's where they get a good idea. Nobody knows what they like more than them, and when they go on our website and they save their searches, we can see the homes that they're most interested in.
And real quick, Daniel, you touched on something as far as the listing agents. Sometimes they don't update the listings accordingly, and,
Right.
and I see that on my end when it comes to financing.
Mm-hmm.
It'll say, we accept, conventional financing and cash.
Right.
But if they accept, FHA financing, it opens up the door for a lot more buyers. So that's good that you go that extra step, and just confirming that the information that the listing agent put on the listing is actually correct.
Yeah. Yeah. And then, so, Mo started off, we go through a buyer consultation. We're setting all those expectations, and then we're doing a search together. We're starting out the search online to find out what is out there, and then that'll take us to the process of scheduling the showings.
Yeah, so basically when scheduling showings, that's typically where the rubber meets the road, so to speak. But that's when you're out there and you're trying to get an idea, when's possible. You want to give as much advance notice as you can. Each home, it could be occupied obviously by the owner, tenant. They may have pets. They may have certain times of the day where if they have young children sleeping, that they try to, we try to accommodate the best we can. So scheduling appointments are critical to get things done. When possible, we like scheduling, between 3 to 5 homes. I think that makes it a more enjoyable experience for you as a consumer, because you could kind of grasp what you looked at that day, and certain homes don't start molding together. To where if you look at 11 to 14 properties in a day, it could be very exhausting. I've never found it to be super effective unless you run a time crunch. But and then you got the properties that hit, and you're like, wow, this one's going to move quick, and you got to start acting fast. You got to be able to do things and make yourself available if you don't want to miss an opportunity. But typically, if we set those appointments up strategically, and logistically, where they flow and they make sense. So, we're not backtracking at all.
Yeah, and I want to mention something about what you just said. You said that, we do like to plan in advance notice. The homes are occupied. Sometimes we need to give it as much advance notice as possible. But every once in a while, there is a property that it pops on the market, and we know that that's everything that customer is looking for. And if it's a hot listing, it's probably going to sell pretty fast. So in some scenarios, we do need to jump on it, try to schedule it as soon as possible, right away. And I think that's one of the benefits of calling and working with Mo and I as partners, is that if one of us isn't available, the other one can step in. So that's a benefit there. And then as we're going through those showings, we want you to take notes. We want you to list the pros and cons of the properties as we're walking through them, so that we can further keep continuing the process of narrowing down what homes work best for you. So again, we're talking through the home buying process today. What we just talked about, we're talking about the house hunting process, and we just want to dig into a little bit further. So through that buyer consultation, finding out your search criteria, and then starting the process of scheduling to go view homes in person, that would be that process. And then from there, we would go on to the next steps, which we'll continue talking in more and more depth in the coming weeks.